point to continue. Okay, we're going to talk about analyzing polynomial functions first. If you have this function, f of x equals negative 2x to the fourth plus 2x squared, okay? And you want to find all the real zeros and the relative extrema. What's a relative extrema?
What is it?
What's the relative extrema? Or the relative minima or maxima? What do you think minima or maxima means? Yeah, so you're looking for the highest and lowest points of this graph. Okay, so we're going to look for the highest and lowest points of this graph. So I want to find the real zeros. And minima. Or maxima. Okay, how do I find the real zeros? What do I need to do first? What do you need to do first to find the real zeros? No. Can I take something out of both of those? 2x squared, right? So let's take out the 2x squared. In fact, I'm going to take out the negative 2x squared so that my leading coefficient is not negative. So negative 2x squared, you're left with x squared minus 1. What is this? What? Difference of squares. So what does it factor to? Minus 1, x plus 1. Okay, now my zeros, I set each of these equal to 0 and I solve. So you would divide by negative 2, x squared equals 0, so x equals 0. X minus 1 equals 0, so x equals 1. X plus 1 equals 0, so x equals negative 1. So my relative, or all my zeros are these. Negative 1, 1, and 0. Okay? How do you find your relative maxima or minimas? I'll give you a hint. You have to use your graphing calculator.
You click the minimum button.
So we're going to plug this into our graphing calculator. Negative 2x to the fourth plus 2x squared. And you're going to graph it.
This is in the y equals?
Yeah, in the y equals.
Then we're plugging in
The original
the original
equation.
equation.
Yeah, you can plug in either, but this is easier. Just plug in the original. So to find the zeros, I have to do math. To find the relative maxima or minima, I'm going to plug it into my calculator. Now, okay, if you press, after you have it graphed, if you press the button second and trace, okay, that takes you to the calculate section. Do you see how number 3 says minima and number 4 says maxima? Does this have a minima or a maxima? Listen, the graph looked like this. The graph looks like this, right? Something like this. So these are going to be your maxima.
So you hit second trace.
And then you hit maximum, yeah. And then it's going to show, it's going to take it so that you can trace to the top part of that peak. So the x is like 0.85, the y is like 0.3, well, it's like 0.9 and 0.4 for one side. And the other side should be the opposite of that, or should be the negative of those values. Yeah. Negative 0.9, negative point, oh no. These are your maxima. So if you put it in the graphing calculator, you press second trace, you can go and press maximum or minimum, whichever one it is that you need, and you can find it that way. Okay? Makes it a little bit easier. Okay, let's talk about a different type of polynomial function. Let's look at something to the fifth power. Let's say we have f of x equals x to the fifth, and then minus 3x cubed minus x squared minus 4x minus 1. Okay. How do you think we're going to solve this? Find the zeros, and I want to find the zeros, and I want to be able to graph this, yes? Yes. Okay. So I need to plug this into my graphing calculator, the y equals spot. X to the fifth minus 3x cubed minus x squared minus 4x minus 1. Press graph. Beautiful. Okay. So when we do that, we get this in-looking shape. Okay. So it's something like this. Okay. Now, instead of factoring this like we did over here, because if we factored this, it would be a little bit more difficult because it has a fifth root in there. We'd have to do some grouping. So instead of factoring, let us go ahead and press second trace again. And then do you see the button where it says 0, the second one? If you hit that, it's going to locate all of your zeros. So one of your zeros is 0, negative 1. Another 0 is on the x side, which would be negative 2, 0. And then 1 is on the positive x value, and it looks like it is positive 2.10. Those are your zeros. Then you're also going to press second and trace again, and you're going to find your, in this case you have a maximum and a minimum. So you're going to find both. So my maximum is at negative 1.3 and 5.3. And then my minimum, I need to make my window bigger personally. I need my y scale, my negative y scale to go down more. So I'm going to have it go down to 15 and see if that gives me, yes it does. And I'm going to find my minimum. So my minimum should be 1.5, negative 11.8. So on your homework tonight, a lot of this comes from your graphing calculator. You will have a little bit different answers in the back of the book says. You might have a little bit of a different answer than your neighbor says. That's okay. Because we're kind of rounding and going with what they give us. Now, let's talk about if it says find a polynomial function with the given zeros, okay? It says we want you to find the function with the given zeros, and they are negative half, 3, and 3. Okay, they want us to find the polynomial function of that, okay? So if x has been set equal to all of these things, okay, x equals negative 1/2, how would I would have had to subtracted 1 to the side, like if it was set equal to 0, I would have had to subtract 1 to the side and divide it by 2. So I would have had 2x plus 1. That translates to negative half, correct? Because if I work it backwards, so if I solve this, I subtract 1 and I get 2x equals negative 1, I divide by 2 and I get x equals negative half, yeah? Okay, so you have to think backwards here a little bit. So I should have a set of parentheses that says 2x plus 1. Okay, 2x plus 1. So I have a set of parentheses that says 2x plus 1 because that is what this is. This says x equals 3. So what was the parentheses originally? How could I get this to have 0? Over here, what would I do with this number? Subtract it so that I would get x minus 3 equals 0. So this is x minus 3, okay? Then from there, I have another 3, so I'm also going to have, this is just basically squared, okay? From there, I'm going to do some foiling so that I can figure out what my polynomial function is. I'm going to say 2x plus 1, and then I'm going to say x minus 3 times x minus 3. This is x squared, negative 3x, negative 3x, positive 9. When I combine like terms inside, this becomes negative 6x. So I have x squared minus 6x plus 9. And now I have to factor 2x plus 1 into that. 2x times x squared gives me 2x cubed. 2x times negative 6x gives me negative 12x squared. 2x times 9 gives me 18x. 1 times x squared gives me x squared. 1 times negative 6x gives me negative 6x. And 1 times 9 gives me 9. Combine like terms, and I have created the polynomial function. So I have 2x cubed. I have negative 12x squared and x squared, so negative 11x squared. I have 18x and negative 6x, so I have 12x. And then I have plus 9. That is the polynomial function that comes from those given zeros. That is going to take you some time to do on your homework tonight. Okay. So that's finding a function when they give you zeros. We need to talk about graphing, sketching a graph of a polynomial function, and then we should be done. So let's sketch a graph. F of x equals negative 2x cubed plus 6x plus 9 seconds. Okay, so we're going to sketch a graph of negative 2x cubed plus 6x plus 9 seconds. The way we're going to sketch a graph is simple. You're going to plug in negatives and positive numbers and 0. So if I were you, I would plug in negative 2, negative 1, 0, 1, and 2. Make it simple. Use easy numbers. This is x, this is y. When you plug negative 2 into this equation, you have negative 2 times negative 2 cubed plus 6 times negative 2 plus 9 seconds. Yes. So you have negative 12, you have plus 9 seconds. What is 9 seconds? It is 2, 4, 6, 8, 4.5, right? Okay, and then negative 2 cubed is negative 8, and negative 8 times negative 2 is positive 16. So 16 minus 12 is 4 plus 4.5, so I get 8.5. Plug in a negative 1. Negative 1 cubed is negative 1 times negative 2 is 2. Minus 6 plus 4.5. So I get a half. Plug in 0. 0 is the easy guy. And you'll get 4.5. That's all you get out. 4.5. Plug in 1. And you're going to get you're going to get 1, negative 2, plus 6, plus 4.5. So I have 10.5 minus 2, so I get 8.5. Plug in 2. And you're going to get 2 cubed, which is 8. 8 times negative 2, which is negative 16. Plus 12 plus 4.5. Negative 16 plus 12 is negative 4, so I get a half out. Now I can graph this. 0, 4.5. We're going to count by 2's. So we'll count by 1's here. Okay, so you have negative 2, 8.5, 2, 4, 6, 8.5. You have negative 1 and then a half. You have 0 and you have 4.5. And you have 1 and you have 8.5. And you have 2 and you have a half. So your graph would look like this. Smooth curves. That's the stuff you're working on. This beginning stuff, all easy calculator work. These last two things take time and effort.